We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the fans forum, and welcome to Barry, to Darren, to Kevin, to Sam, and to George as we dissect today's result. Newcastle United travelling down to Luton. Luton 1, Newcastle 0. And doom and gloom on social media. Can we get anything positive from the panel tonight? Well, we will wait and see. Barry, I know you probably wouldn't have seen the game today, but will have followed it on the radio. You don't have to see a game to know that a result like that is not a good result for Newcastle. Luton, tricky place to go. I think we all expected Newcastle to get something out of it today, but it wasn't to be. And a 1-0 defeat coming off the back of the cup exit in the Carabao Cup this week. Pretty depressing week, Barry, going into Christmas.
Yeah, I watch all the shows that you guys do, and what brings back for me was the Supermac and Gibbo show that was on the other day, Steve. And literally, Supermac predicted exactly what was going to happen. It was scary because I've sort of watched it back, and he said how obviously Luton are a physical side. They've got a small ground. They're going to be really passionate because of the unfortunate that happened to their player last weekend. He basically said that if Newcastle don't go at them from the opening of the game, if they allow Luton the chance to settle and play the ball around and obviously use the physicality, he says they could well turn us over. And it literally was like for like what he said the other day. And I know we had our chances, but I've watched the highlights back, and yeah, it might not be the right attitude to do with just the highlights that I've seen, but there were very few and far between. The Wilson chance looked a decent one. The Isaac offside, I didn't see it as an offside, but having watched Eddie's press conference, he admitted himself he thought it was a goal, but having seen the replays, he agrees that it was probably offside. I felt so sorry for Eddie Howe because it's the first time I've seen him where he's looked fed up with the back teeth. He looked as though he didn't want to be there. I mean, he gave the politically correct answers, which he does, and he swerved a few really awkward questions from the reporters, but you just thought he was on the verge of, if it had been another manager, you would have thought he was going to have a go at the players. He sort of said that they lacked the commitment, especially first half. He thought there would have been more passion there. They would have gone for stuff. Again, Trippier hasn't done himself any favours because I think their goal, him and Dubravka between them, just basically stood there and let the guy have a free chance. Neither of them looked interested in getting involved in it. But then Dubravka pulls out that save with his feet. That looked like another goal. Luton hit the bar. We just didn't look as though we were at the races again. And I've made the mistake of watching another channel comments on the game, which has gone everything from Newcastle are never going to win another game away from home this season to Eddie Howe should be sacked. you know, he's only got till the Mackems game, and if the Mackems beat us, then the Saudis will sack Eddie Howe, and all this absolute rubbish. You just think, with the team that we've got and the players that we've got injured, you've got to give them a chance. That, I mean, I so wanted to say it to them, and I thought, I'm going to get my head ripped off here. You've got to do what another thing Supermax said. You've got to look at Luton's recent results against Man City, against Arsenal. Both of them, there weren't great victories for those two teams. And I would have said at the minute, Arsenal and Man City are way above us, the way we're playing at the minute. And yet Luton pushed them right to the limits. So why couldn't Luton have a go at us? It's one of those things. I mean, again, they were saying, well, why did the players go and applaud the fans at the end of the match? And you think, you know, this is something that's built up between the players and the fans. The fans have travelled God knows how far down to Luton to go and watch that performance, for want of a better word. Why shouldn't they go and applaud them? And it was another thing that Eddie said, is he told his players, you will go and say thank you to the fans for supporting us all the way down there, regardless of how poor the performance was. And I just think, we're fighting amongst ourselves again, Steve. It's like, well, we've got to be behind the team. I mean, the comments that it was a really bad result, I've seen us play a damn sight worse, especially under the Mr. Cashley there. Some of his 10-year, I've seen us play a damn sight worse, and yet we're slating our own management, our own players, and we're some fans who personally think they should go and start supporting the Mackems are shouting for Eddie Howe to be sacked. We're having a great season. It's just a couple of bubbles. We've just got to move on and get a few more players back, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay, Barry, thanks for that. Darren, I mean, losing 1-0 to Luton, it's disappointing. I guess from our perspective, you know, we've got to get over this away form. The away form's the issue here.
Yeah, it's totally right. Away form was not very good at the minute, but like Barry said, we need players back, because Ross Barkley the day ran the middle of the park. If Wilson scores, it would have been a different game, but so he didn't. But bar that, it was a dreadful game of football. But Luton were up for it. They were hungry. They were fresh. We won fresh. We won hungry enough. We did try, but we had. He changed the tackle the first shot. He took Melly up because to bring Isak on to change it up, to mix it up a bit. I think the tackling why he brought Melly up, but just because Melly was non-existent. Well, not saying that. Knee one was existent. Showed a lot. I can't give you a man a match today. You want to play out and see who played good was Botman when he come on. Botman just done Botman what he does best. Just looks for the simple stuff. I can't even pick up man a match, but got beat. We're down on form. No point getting the players back. We need to get behind them. It just shows you last season how far overachieved. It's a realistic check for us. We're not there yet. It's a 5-year plan. So what we don't do, if we don't get in Europe this season, fans got to have a wake-up call. It's a 5-year plan. Just stick with Eddie and stick with the ownership, because it's going to take transfer windows to get players in and right. So no points sack Eddie. It's just a joke. We need to stick by Eddie and trust the ownership, and stick by Eddie as well, and get players in. And transfer windows coming up.
Okay, Kevin. You know, from your perspective, you know, we chat on WhatsApp whilst the game's on. You give your impression. What went wrong today, Kev, for you?
Where do you start? I think there was I'm not saying there's going to be a lack of desire, because I think that's how Eddie Howe sets his team up from a mental standpoint. There's always going to be effort. There's always going to be a want. But I think the occasion of playing what happened to their lad who unfortunately had his heart attack and this and that last week, and I think we got caught up in all that emotion. They played on that emotion, and we didn't know how to deal with it. The fans were right behind them from the off. It was, again, you get the analogy of a championship side playing a Premier League side in the FA Cup. or a League Cup game, and that's how I seen it, and we couldn't deal with it. Not tactically, but unfortunately, Ross Barkley controlled the whole game, in my opinion. For somebody who's been in and around football for quite a while, for somebody to do that against the three that we've got in the midfield, 1 against 3, you should never be able to do that. Similarly with Andros Townsend, who got the goal. I thought there was too much space in the middle of the field. That's why I changed it. Bringing off Miley, bringing off obviously with the injury, which is a forced change to Lascelles. So going into like whatever you put it in the WhatsApp group, you could look at it as a 4-2-3-1. You can still look at it as a 4-3-3. You can look at it as a whatever shape you want to look at it. But it was the long ball, like against Everton. It was similar the same against them. They go from back to front. They'll be very physical with that big lad up there who played very well against Lascelles and give him really nothing. And what Lascelles really didn't do, it influenced him. So it was the first ball that we really couldn't win. Then the second ball we couldn't win because we were overloaded. So that's why I changed it. And that's what I've seen. And that's what the guys on my commentary, what I've seen. And I've watched the full thing, unfortunately. But it was, once the change was made, we looked like a little bit of a better side. But however, after 19 minutes, when you put a brilliant ball in from Anthony Gordon, you got an England centre forward standing on the edge of the 6-yard box. If you're not scoring that, we've got problems, genuine problems, because that was, again, 6 yards out, middle of the goal. Anywhere else than it's going in, any other striker would have scored that. Unfortunately, I just don't think there's a belief that we're going to score a goal. I don't think there's a belief that we're going to be able to win a game. I just think and this is my personal opinion, I think there's a certain ceiling that, and he's seen it at Bournemouth and through Eddie Howe's career, I think there's a ceiling that he can only reach. And I think that the top of that ceiling is getting pretty close of where he can take a team. Not saying I'm going to take him sacked, I'm not saying that at all, but to galvanize a team with the injuries that we have, we've known that for months. So we can't lean on that anymore. We're getting players back. It was pretty much the same back four, but Dubravka. So it was pretty much the same back four outside of substitutions, and we looked a little bit more solid. It was pretty much the same midfield outside of maybe even a Tonali, even in the last year. You bring Miley off and put out again. You look at it tactically. I would have brought Miguel Almiron off, because I think he just runs down one-way streets, and there's no product. There's no, yes, he can run around. He might be a lovely lad. Unfortunately, the end product's not good enough. We had this conversation about Alan Saint-Maximin years ago. What's the end product look like? And it's nowhere to be seen. I would have put maybe Gordon or an Isaac on the right or left, put Isaac into the middle. Whichever is the 10 in behind Wilson, and get around their centre halves a little bit more, but we didn't do that. We kept it as it was. Then seemed like later in the game, Miggy went into that role and again tried to run down one-way streets. He's going left to right versus up and down, and that's and I think there's a big confidence level that's, especially within him and for the most of the players, it's not executing the game plan and going into the final third having the belief that we're going to score. I mean, if you look at Luton's entries into the box, shots at target, shots on goal, all the above, it was like the table could have been flipped upside down today, and you would never have known. If you didn't know anything about the Premier League and saying who's seventh and who's third bottom, you would probably never have known.
Just the way of form is so, Alan, because at home form we can't score goals. Just the way.
But at the same time, that's a different kettle of fish. I
kind of disagree. We're not going to look. We're not going to score, but just we're not away game with a total team in the minute. So I think we do know how to score. I just think we're just for some strange reason we're playing away. We're not doing very good.
At the end of the day, I understand. Yes, not at home, you're away from home, but it's still a rectangular piece of grass with white lines on it, and you still kick the same football about. and you go.
No, no,
I know where you're coming from, Mike, but at the same time, there's got to be the same attitude going forward. Wherever you play, the big teams do it. Arsenal went there and won 4-3 in the last minute, and it was end to end that game. And they found a way to win the game. We can't find ways to win games. We can't find ways to pull ourselves out of dire performances and just grab a draw. But again, if the Callum Wilson chance goes in, that could be a completely different game. But
because he should have scored there, love.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but again, it could be a completely different game. But it's unfortunate. I'm not calling for Eddie's head, but at the same time, I think he might have to have a good hard look at himself in terms of how he.
Good strong.
That's just how I see it. I think if you look at it in terms of his Bournemouth days, he reached a ceiling in terms of how he wanted his teams to play, and they reached a certain level. And look what happened there. Not saying that's going to happen to us, but again, he's moved on as a coach and developed as a coach. I'm just saying that's where I say he's reaching a certain level of where you can get the best out of players when literally the shit hits the fan.
But he hasn't got the player to do it though at the minute.
Well, I understand that, but still, it regardless, you've got to galvanise and you've got to renew the squad somehow in terms of he's been in worse situations.
You can't renew the squad. You can't get a transfer window coming in because I would have transfer window.
But he's been in worse situations with Bournemouth with lesser quality of player. So if you there's two sides to the coin. Look, I'm not disagreeing with you. Whatever, this is my opinion.
Yeah, I'll take your opinion.
You know what I mean? So again, it's disappointing.
I was just going to say, as a coach, I mean, you know more about coaching than we do. Is it something that gets into a player's mentality about when they're playing away from home to playing? I mean, George can probably answer as well. Is there that much of a change in the mentality about it? Because it seems to be, I mean, to be honest, in the past, Newcastle have had spells where it's been the reverse. It's not necessarily last season, but in season gone past, where the home form's been atrocious and their away form's been really good. Is it something that gets into their heads? I don't understand why it's like a switch turning on and off.
It shouldn't, but it seems like it's like a switch goes off, like like a comfort blanket at St James's Park. It seems like that when we go away from home, we're completely freeze. But Sheffield United, I mean, we've put in some decent performances away from home, yes, but the result hasn't been what we've expected. Granted, but I think it's just aggro in the games, especially against that maybe the better side. If you're not a good side in this particular division, what I generally coaching, and you're only going up against like the top 2 or 3, well, you're going to sit in, you're going to make it difficult, you're going to try and get as much as you can out of the game. That's a different thing. But where we're different in that sense, where on the flip side of it, where we need to go and dominate that game. Essentially, we did first. Well, not did, but we had periods of passages of play where we kept the ball really well, but we went really nowhere with it. And it was just side to side, balls into Wilson, then it would just get knocked. Then it would be lost or what. You know what I mean? So again, it's the plan that Eddie and his coaches put in place.
We can, mate.
Anybody hear me?
We can, mate. Yep. Just bear with us. Bear with us. We'll bring you in.
Hello.
Right. So, well, again, it's a player mentality. The coach can say, I can say to players, and George could probably agree that, hey, go and do this, go do X, do Y, do Z. If that plan's not executed, then it's a waste of time.
Okay, we'll put the link out for Alan, but the mighty winners come on. We can hear you, mate. Go on. What point do you want to make?
Can't hear anything.
We can hear you, mate. He's not good with the technology, unfortunately. He cannot hear us. But never mind. It was nice to have him on. Alan, if you want to join us, get yourself in. We did send the link out for you, mate.
Come on, Alan.
Coming to you now, Chippers.
I was so frustrated.
How's the cold, first of all?
Oh, well, I'm getting there. I mean, my voice still sounds like a 15-year-old kid, so that still needs to sort itself out. I mean, like I said, I think Luke was out of business. I think I've ran Cavonia out of business. I think I've ran all the major handkerchief companies out of business and all, if there's any still going. So, but I was disappointed with that the day. you know, after midweek, after going out the way we did in the cup, I thought, you know what, we've got something to prove here. We've got something to fight for. We've got something to go out there and, you know, get the fans, you know, give the fans something to shout about, because obviously that left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, and then today is just even more sour, to be honest, because there was nothing in that game today. There was no effort, no fight, there was nothing. It was a weak performance, and it was nothing. It was just like, yeah, credit to Luton, they deserve the win, but it's just the fact is we made it so easy for them. If we put a fight in, fair enough, but we didn't. I mean, this is the first defeat, I think, since Eddie Howe's come in, that we've lost to a team that's been promoted. It's their first clean sheet all season as well, and it's took them what till Newcastle turned up. How familiar is that? I don't know. Like, some of the players out there, they need a good haul up themselves. I mean, I don't know what Mickey offers. I don't know what he offers were going forward. I mean, yeah, he might be good tracking back and all that, but he's meant to be a £20 million winger. I want to see him creating. I don't see him doing that. Longstaff today looked like he was running on empty all game. Anthony Gordon, bless him, he couldn't even walk, so I don't know why he was selected at all. And he played the majority of the game, which I thought was baffling. I felt so sorry for Lewis Hall coming on for 6 minutes. I thought, was that trying to embarrass him or something, or was that trying to show that he wasn't good enough by him getting booked when he came on? I just didn't understand what our identity was today. I just thought that as soon as we went behind a goal behind Eddie Howe, just went, you know what, I'm just going to bring players on and hope for the best. We made two subs before half time, fair enough. But that two subs in the 80th and 84th minute was far too late. You could quite clearly see we needed changes early on, we didn't make them. They made 4 or 5 changes before we made our third and fourth changes. I don't want Eddie Howe, but the owners will look and think it's a results business, and if we keep struggling away from home, and we've only won one away game all season, they will do something, whether people like it or not, because they don't want us to lose to Luton Town. No disrespect to Luton, but they don't. They want us to compete with the big boys, and when you lose to teams like Luton away from home, Bournemouth away from home, Everton away from home, no disrespect, when the time we're playing them, they're all in relegation battles. They're not going to put up with that for long. They want us to be going there beating them, because they're the teams you have to beat to get top 6. And we haven't got the squad to compete with them this season. We haven't, but if you look at that team we had out today, that team was good enough to beat Luton. I'm sorry, but it was. I don't care what anyone says.
We're having Everton, we played Everton, they're being fresh. Played Tottenham, they've already played the games all season. we haven't had a week off for the last 2 months, really. And I'm not going to use Tyne as an excuse, but we're on empty. And we have got a few knocks in teams. The players want to play because they want to play with a shirt. So I just think we've got a lot of players out injured now. I know I haven't been playing great, but I just think we need to get a grip of ourselves where how far we've come. And we're getting beat. We hate losing. Everybody hates losing, especially Newcastle. But last year it just shows how far we overachieved, and this year it's a bit more. It's a realistic check how far we're going to go to the next level.
Okay, look, Mighty wins there again. Can you hear us, mate?
I can hear you, yeah.
Go on, what point do you want to make?
I'm just a bit sad, really, that everybody's so quick to get on the bandwagon and whatnot. People don't seem to realise just what a horrendous situation we've had all season, which has meant that all season we've been, since the first couple of weeks, we've just been relying on the same, 10 to 13 players to perform. And of course, then with all the games we've had, people are saying we're not as fit as we were. And I think that's probably right, because chances are he's toned down training a bit, because with playing the same players week after week after week, he knows they're getting tired, and to overtrain them is going to tire them even more. And it's just so sad to hear as much criticism for Eddie when he's been fighting with his hands tied behind his back all season.
Well said.
You know, the locals, you know, proper fans. I'm not calling them or anything, but they seem to be jumping on the national agenda that Eddie Howe's taking us as far as he can go, etc., etc., etc. Tell you what, if we had our full squad available, you know, we could cope with reasonable injuries that a lot of the other teams have had. You know, Tottenham could say they've had injuries, whatever. But if we'd had you know, when you think about it, one stage we had Bruno, Willock, Barnes, and at the time actually Gordon was suspended. So I had 4 top-class left-sided midfield wingers, call them what you will, all unavailable.
Yep.
And people are criticising Miggy. Who else have we got that can... Actually, I'll take that back a bit because I would quite like to see Livramento pushed forward a bit further in front of Trippier. That might be an option. But again, then you're asking young kids to play, you know, 3 games in 9 days, and it's going to take it out of them. You know, he hasn't had the... People are complaining about Eddie not rotating, but he simply hasn't had the options to rotate, in my opinion.
I would agree with you. I think I think there needs to be perspective. It's what I've tried to say to people. Today we weren't good enough. Newcastle weren't good enough. We lost a game to a team at the bottom of the table. But as we all know, you could go to Manchester City away, and it could be the hardest game in the league. You can go to Luton Town away, and that can be the hardest game in the league if you're not playing to your strengths and you haven't got all your players available. And I'll ask a question today. There's only Eddie Howe knows how all of those names on paper. I saw that team today, the starting team today, and I saw the subs bench, and I thought, wow, we've got options. That's a team good enough to beat Luton. But let's face it, how many of those players were actually 100% fit?
Exactly.
Both mentally and physically. I'm telling you now, listening to Eddie Howe's press conference yesterday, and I listened to them all, Eddie Howe said Isak was 50-50. He more or less had to play a full game today now after the injury to Lascelles. He said that there would be decisions made on Gordon. Well, Gordon could hardly walk. Somebody's already pointed that out. That team's basically exhausted. And we knew it was going to be like this with the Champions League. We knew it was going to be like this with, we've had an extended run in the Carabao Cup again. It's not all doom and gloom, and I agree with you.
That's really my point here. It's not all doom and gloom. You know, we're still 7th in the league. We came within a kick of being in the top 16 of the Champions League. We came within a kick of Carabao semi-final. Yeah. And we're 7th in the league, and we're having a dreadful season. I say, hang on a minute. Let's get our feet on the ground a bit here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, well said. George, what about you, mate? Because we've swapped around a little bit. Yeah. Are you going to stay with us? The mighty wind. Do you want to stay with us?
Yeah. I'll hang about.
Right, stay on. Okay, George, and then Alan. So, George, what's your take on today, George?
Well, as you lads know, I'm Mr. Optimistic, and it's all roses for me. It's not all roses today. That was awful. The only word to use, it was dreadful. From the minute that Wilson missed that sitter of a header, you realised what sort of a day it was going to be. It just was absolutely awful. And then sadly, during the game, there were things happening that I've not seen happen at the club for a long time. People pulling out of tackles, people slowing up and not doing what they normally do is that everyday thing, and that worries me greatly. Within 5 minutes, Dubravka and Longstaff and Shaw were arguing between the three of them. If you watched on the pitch, they were really having a go at Dubravka, and that all doesn't augur well for the goal. Well, I hate to pick on the young lad, but Lewis Miley was marking him, and when the ball came over, Lewis Miley wasn't anywhere near to be seen. And it's all right saying that Dubravka didn't do this and Trippier didn't do this. The man that was marking him just wasn't there. He just went for a walkabout, and the older guy Townsend just got one up on him. It's as simple as that. Someone with an older head found a way around it. So yeah, a depressing game for me from lots of points of view. The big plus for me is that Botman looks as though he's back and doing what's necessary, and he's the only one that could qualify for anything like man of the match, because he was superb for the bit he had to do, and I like the way Bartley could have had a hat trick if it hadn't been for Botman, because twice Botman kidded him out of shots that he was going to take by using his body and body swerving and getting Bartley to pull onto the other foot, and I thought, well, there's Botman's class. But to see a team, bottom of the league team, with Andros Townsend and Bartley running the show, says it all for me. I mean, they're two that shouldn't even get in our dressing room, never mind on the team. And yet they were showing us how to play football today. So very depressing for me. Jumping on the bandwagon of Eddie, well, I don't think you've got far to jump, lads, because if you think for 1 minute, if you don't know anything about Saudi business, if Piff on sitting at home in Riyadh today thinking, whoops, what the hell is happening here? Because they've got their own man in the sidelines if it all goes wrong, and I don't think they'd hesitate for 1 minute to get involved. So it may not just be the locals that are upset; it might be the people who own the club that might be upset, because the one thing they demand is success. And as somebody's already pointed out, all the teams that we've lost to, none of them really big teams. We've lost to teams that we should be beating every day of the week. And tactically, well, Kevin said it all. We just weren't at the races. You know, there was from the minute Luton got off at 100 miles an hour and we let them. We didn't get into the game at all. The game was nearly over by the time we started to look like we could play a bit of football. And the people who normally would rely on to do that, like Bruno and others, well, they just weren't there. So I'm Mr. Positive, as you know, and want to see us do well. But I'm not going to sit here and say everything's wonderful when my football brain tells us it was bloody awful. It was as bad as I've seen since before Howe came in. I'd have to go a long way back to when we were looking over our shoulders at relegation to see a performance as bad as that. And again, as Kevin says, if you turn the league upside down and put Luton at the top and us at the bottom, you wouldn't have been wrong today, because that's what it looked like. So not a good day. Not the end of the world. They've got a chance to put it right, but they've got to do it quickly, because the one thing that does happen in teams is you can get an attitude for winning, but you can get an attitude for losing just as easy. And that does worry me.
If we start losing games at home, I'll be concerned. Let's see what happens against Forest first before we start going down that route. Will be my view. We've got a home game against Nottingham Forest, comes quick over the Christmas period, and let's see where we're at. Talking to somebody who's full of positivity on this platform, Alan.
Well, the man of the match for me, Steve, was the crossbar. It had 3 coats of paint on, and it saved us from getting a hammering. To be honest, that was the man of the match today for me. The midfield was non-existent. Apart from Bruno tried his best, but I thought Gordon was a walking passenger.
Bruno tried his best. He couldn't pass the ball.
I thought he had a few passes down trying to make it work. Yes, they went to them.
Bruno only plays when Longstaff plays for some reason. That was noticeable when Longstaff without Bruno was rubbish. But when Longstaff's having a badding, and he had a badding today. There was most of them had a badding today. I thought Dubravka came out with credit because there was a lot of people on his back before the game. But the other thing is, you're saying we should be expected. The last 4 away games have been Everton, who have had their 10 points back, would be 7th in the league. Tottenham, who are up there in 5th. Chelsea, who, okay, they're not doing much, but they've still got £1 billion squad. People who are expecting to go and win those games are a bit starry-eyed, I think.
Well, the thing is, maybe win as well. You know, a lot of people say, well, away form's shocking, which on paper it is.
It is.
But to be fair, since I've supported Newcastle, majority of seasons we only win 4 or 5 games away from home. Last year was the exception to the rule.
Oh, it was.
You know, George will tell you, you know, we only win 4 or 5 games away from home as a rule. And last year we won 8 and we drew a lot and we only got beat 3 times. That is an exceptional year for us away from home.
Absolutely.
Well, didn't we become a joke in London? We couldn't kick a ball in London for years.
33 games.
Suddenly last year we won everything.
Mm-hmm. So to be honest, I want to get our away form sorted out. And I said it a few days ago, George. Until we get that sorted, we're going nowhere up the leagues.
Yeah.
As far as top 4, in my eyes, it's going in the distance very quickly at the minute.
It's 100 miles an hour.
I learned about ages ago.
Yep. I mean, today, if we'd won, there was a slight chance we could have got back into it, Darren.
No way.
I mean, you know, Darren, I mean, it just shows you. I mean, I went on their podcast last night and they were meltdown because they drew with Sheffield United. And look at the run they've been on. You know.
I just don't think we've got the team. I think it's.
No.
I've said a long one off in the top 4 season.
Mm-hmm.
I think this year is a more realistic check for us.
Yeah, probably right, Darren. On the face of it, as much as it hurts me, because I want to finish constantly in the top 4, but unfortunately the squad isn't good enough, and it shows. It'll take anyhow 3, 4, 5 years to recycle that squad. We're starting from the bottom now.
But the squad is good enough. They're just not available.
Right.
Yeah. You know, that's just that's what I'm saying. People are just not, honestly. I mean, Eddie will never use it as an excuse. But I think we as fans are entitled to use it as an excuse. We had 400 million pounds worth of players nearly unavailable for 4 games on the trot.
Yeah, well said. Well said. But I still think we've got a lot of, how can I say it, players that shouldn't be there. And I mean, like the likes of
and they wouldn't be there if Joey Linton was fit, if Barnes was fit. If, you know, if Tenali hadn't got banned, they wouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah, it'd still be in the squad, wouldn't it? Because we haven't getting to that stage yet where we've still got 6 or 7 fringe players who shouldn't really be in the squad anymore.
He was asked about this, though, of course, in his press conference yesterday about players staying and about players going, about who we might sign as Calvin Phillips on your shopping list, and he said, you know, I'm not going to talk about players coming in. And when he was asked about players going out, he said, for me, I can't afford to let players go out. So, you know, he always plays it fairly tight, you know, to his chest when he talks a little bit about ins and outs. But he felt that the strength of the squad at the start of the season was good enough, and I think it is if everyone's fit. But this has been a freak season for injuries. I think for me, Dan Ashworth will be looking at this and going, why are we getting so many injuries? Why are we getting so many injuries? Is it because of the high intensity game we play? Is it because the fact that we've played European football this season and the preparation has to be different for that? There's lots of questions which will be circulating around that football club now. I will point to the fact that Darren Eales, though, on the Amazon documentary did say that a team going into Europe has to expect that things will be harder and that there'll be a dip in form and a dip in league position. But one defeat doesn't make a season. Today's been a horrendous day. We can't sugarcoat that result at all. Possibly we overachieved. In fact, we definitely overachieved last year, which is heaped the pressure on Eddie Howe and his players. And you know, it's just the way the football is now. It's so fickle, and I genuinely believe Newcastle could beat Forest on Boxing Day. Things will look a lot brighter. The way the results have gone today, we'll still be in contention. We're still nicely placed. But
I'm certainly not in the camp of get rid of Eddie for the next 2 or 3 years, Steve. No matter what.
I would be surprised if he's here in 3 years' time. That's what I'll say. But I don't think you should get rid of Eddie Howe now. I'll take what Kev said about the ceiling, though. Although somebody did point out in the chat that, you know, Eddie Howe didn't get Bournemouth to the Champions League. So you would have to say that Eddie Howe's improved at Newcastle. He went away, he learned, and he's improved. He certainly has.
Yeah,
and then
and
some people
look at the players he's improved. I mean, he's
yeah.
Yeah, George.
George, that's a great point, because a lot of people say, yeah, well, he's had money to spend at Newcastle, but he hasn't, because he's been hampered by financial fair play, and he's had to improve. The likes of Almiron, the likes of
go back to when we battered Spurs 5-1.
Yep,
there was 8 players in that team who could have played for Bruce.
Yeah,
and Bruce never touched them. They sat on the sidelines, kicking their heels, you know, absolutely useless. Some of them were on that game performed like international stars. It wasn't just an improvement; it was mega. So he's got all that. He's done all of that. But what I was saying earlier is what we think as supporters and what the owners sitting back in Saudi Arabia think are two different things. And if you've ever worked for a Saudi business, and I've worked as a consultant for them, they only want one thing: success. And if it's not there, goodbye.
I think one thing they should be looking at is our medical staff. Because I wonder how much of that's to do with it. You talk about overtraining being, or the pressing style being a consequence. The tiredness being a consequence of overtraining. But I'm worried about the likes of Barnes. You know, he hurt his foot, and they sort of said, "Oh, he'll be out a couple of weeks," and then all of a sudden it was a couple of months, and then he needs an operation. And the same with Botman. He was out. You know, it was supposed to be a bit of a thigh strain. And then it was going to be longer than that. And then he might need an operation. So I think that could be one area that they do need to look at.
Well, Anderson's the same.
Yes,
Anderson
exactly.
And he's
there's another player who was really coming good and not available anymore.
Yeah, that was a freak injury. A freak injury. Wasn't it?
A lot of the injuries, some of the injuries, as Steve says, are complete freaks and might never happen to them again.
Yeah.
Botman's knee injury. How many players, I mean, Kevin will tell you, how many players rick their knee just by landing awkwardly? It doesn't happen very often. To rick it as bad as that is just freak. It just doesn't happen. And there's other as well. Barnes' foot injury. That's not the sort it's not the sort of foot injury footballers usually get. And I think that's what surprised the medical staff. But once they've got an X-ray and a scan, they could see the damage inside, and that's that's got to be put right. So it's going to.
Well, that's the theory.
It's all there's so many of them that are not just injuries, but they're freak injuries and probably won't happen again. But they have happened, and we've got to deal with it. That's the simple fact.
Lee G says, how do you feel about the derby in 2 weeks? Did you see their result? Did you see their result, Lee? I'm not being funny, mate, but Bellingham's brother picked a good game to go to at the Stadium of Light. It was Coventry, and Jimmy Hill would have been laughing wherever he is these days at that one today. Let's, for the last 20 minutes, well, 16, 70 minutes, lads, we'll do the ads at the end. Let's just look ahead to the Nottingham Forest game, get predictions. So Newcastle play Nottingham Forest, 12:30 kickoff live on Amazon Prime. And obviously we're a little bit early to find out who is injured and who isn't injured. But obviously from our perspective, Jamal Lascelles went off today. It's another one of the walking wounded to join the latest recruits to that list, Joe Linton and Fabian Scher. Probably be one or two others carrying knocks, you would imagine. Lewis Hall was the only one booked, which was good news for Sean Longstaff, who only has to avoid being booked in the Forest game, and then he can move into the second part of the season, having to aim for 10 yellow cards before he's suspended. But the travel sickness is there, Barry, but the home form at the moment, 7 home wins, 7 wins in a row, Barry. Are you expecting a bit more of the same on Boxing Day?
Exactly. I think we'll turn Forest over 2-0. I think with the fans' support behind them, like you say, Lascelles might be going out, but Botman's back. Defensively, we'll shuffle a few people around. We seem to have this invincibility at home. I mean, I'm hoping this doesn't come back to bite us on the arse, but we do seem to have this golden touch at home for whatever reason, and it's so frustrating that they can't do that away from home, because whatever he does at home, the passion's there, they get stuck in. Even if they go behind or they start to struggle, they seem to turn it round and they go for it. And it's got to be better at home, having your own fans behind you. But to make such a huge difference, I honestly think we'll turn Forest over quite easily. I had a feeling today would be a bit of a tough game. I thought we'd have enough in the bag to beat Luton. Looking exactly what you said, Steve, looking at the team we had, we should have beaten them. But these things happen. The circumstances that have happened to Luton, you couldn't have seen coming. No, I think we'll beat Forest, and then obviously we've got, as Eddie himself said in the press conference, it's got a horrendous January coming up. But hopefully the Forest game will give us some confidence, and we may get. I would love to see Isaac get back to fitness before he plays him again, but I'm guessing that's not going to happen. You'll have him in the team for the Forest game probably.
Yeah, it wasn't offside today, by the way. I don't know what on earth they were doing with the lines today, but I felt that was a perfectly good goal. And that, again, a goal we probably didn't deserve. Second half performance was better than the first half performance today, but I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. But, you've just got to take the rough with a smooth with VAR. It'll balance itself out, which wasn't the point of VAR in the first place. Darren, Forest at home, thoughts and a prediction from you?
Well, as you said, hit the nail on the head before, Steve. I'm not too concerned about our home form because we're playing really well. We've won 7 in a row, I believe. We're getting beat away, but it'll come. Hopefully, it'll come good and get players in. But at home, the players will be angry now after getting beat twice, so they'll be hurting, and they want to put things right against Forest for the fans and give them a good display. So I fancy a 3-0 win.
3-0 win. George, you was optimistic.
Well, when we spoke the other night, I was slightly more optimistic because I think I was looking at a 4-0 win.
You were?
Yes. I'm still not downhearted as much to take it away, but they'll have to do a lot of hard work this week to put it right. So I'll stick with me 4-0, but Eddie Howe and the lads have got to do some work together and get that togetherness back together in the game again. So that was missing today. As I say, I saw, maybe I was just, my old eyes are deceiving us, but I saw people pulling out of tackles and not going through with things which before they would have run through brick walls, never mind tackles. Well, they didn't today, and that there's got to be a reason for that, and he's got to find out why, and very, very quickly. We should have 11 players. Despite all the injuries, let's forget all the injuries. We should still have 11 players to beat Nottingham Forest next week. Who should have beat Luton today if they performed as they should have done. So I think they'll get a kick up the backside next week off the staff and take it out on Nottingham Forest when we play them on Boxing Day.
Okay, what's your prediction now then, George?
Still 4-0.
Still 4-0. Okay.
Yep.
Win. What's your thoughts on Forest, mate? I think we're going to win this game, mate. I'm not going to change my opinion. I still think we'll win this game.
I don't think you can overestimate the power of the crowd. We are without doubt the 12th man, and it makes such a big difference. But what I would just agree with George about there was this is the worst performance under Eddie that I've seen in terms of the players not wanting it as much as the opposition. I think that's the first time that I've ever seen us not want the game more than the opposition. And as George says, pulling out the tackles and just not giving it that extra mile, But Forest, I think we might struggle to score the first one. But once we've scored the first one, we'll get a couple more.
Okay, optimism. Alan?
Well, I said 3-1. I'm going to stick to it, Steve. The only doubt I've got is Boxing Day record is absolutely horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous.
Won last year, didn't we? Beat Leicester 3-0.
It is. It's Darren, if you look in the record books, we're one of the worst on Boxing Day ever. Honestly. So I'm sticking to 3-1. I hope and pray they get their act together because, like George and Wynne said, They were pulling out the tackles. Gordon, especially today, he was injured. Him today, he just stood there. He was. Grace Monument was quicker than him, to be honest. Today, he just stood there like a statue. But I'm going with 3-1, and I'm praying we get there. And then we've got 4 easy games, lads, because nobody's expecting 3. The other one, like Lee said before, I was expecting 10-0 against Sunday. It's down to 5. But the other 3, we've got it. Nothing's expected. It'll be like the Eurovision Song Contest, won't it? 0-3. So that's why I'm expecting in January off them 3. Liverpool, Man City, and Aston Villa. But
yeah, mate, just get a shock.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what we're looking for from now on. But 3-1, Steve. 3-1.
Okay. Kevin?
Again, it's a Premier League game at home. It's not going to be easy. You know, they've got Santos in there, Nuno in there as coach. So, they got to be 3-2. They had a player harshly sent off in Bowley, I believe it was, which was a disgraceful red card, which should never have been. But yeah, he'd be suspended for that. You know, if we get the first one, like the mate Wynn said, if we get when we get it, I think we'll get it early based on off the bounce of this result. But again, it all comes down to the mentality of the player for me. If we get the mentality of being at home, Boxing Day, which, by the way, Alan, 90% of our Boxing Day trips are away from home. So that puts into that stat a little bit. But, you know, but I agree with what you're saying. It's not the best, but at the same time, we do play away from home, which is not very good. But at the same time, if we get the first goal and pretty much consolidate that and control the game from there and just manage the game properly and get back to basics and go what George said, go and win a tackle, somebody go and lay one on somebody, go and head a ball, go kick it, you know, just do something basic and get a win. I can't put a scoreline on it. I really can't. I would win 1-0 for me as long as we get a win. I don't really care, and keep the home streak, the win streak alive, and then we'll go and see what January brings, and we'll just go game by game with that. But yeah, I think we'll get a win in some way, shape, or form.
Got to watch the danger man, lads. I've told you, Chris Wood, he's the man.
For the record,
never let him go.
For the record, Kevin, I've travelled 12 times on Boxing Day away from home throughout the years. My record is lost 10 and drew 2.
Well, thankfully we're at home. So.
Yeah, home game should be a little bit different, hopefully. Chimmers will give you the last prediction for the Forest game, please.
Yeah, I said 3-0 the other day, and I'm sticking to it. St James's Park at home, nobody likes coming here now, so I'm going to stick with that. I think we get the first goal, all the crowd can get up for it, get a good atmosphere going. I know it's a bit early on the Boxing Day to have a game of football for some people, but so be it. It's a game that we've got to win. If we want realistic ambitions of finishing the top 6, we've got to win our own games. Simple as that. And that's what we've been good at this season. So let's continue it. They got beat 3-2 today, so they didn't really have that new manager bounce. But again, I fully expect us to beat them at home. I think if it was down there, I'd be a bit more concerned. But the fact that St James's, only 50,000 there, let's have them 3-0.
Okay, great stuff. Thanks for joining us, lads. We've broadcast for the first time in a couple of years on Instagram as well today. So big shout out to everybody watching on Instagram. If you want to keep in touch with NUFC Matters, get yourself onto YouTube and subscribe to NUFC Matters. We'll do the odd one on Instagram, but we won't do it on a regular basis. Same as on Twitter as well. Sometimes put them out on different social media pages. But thanks to everybody for tuning in and some of the comments. But thanks to Barry, thanks to Darren, thanks to George, to Chippers, to Kevin, to Alan, and to the mighty Win for joining us tonight. And just want to wish you all the best for Christmas.
All the best.
Enjoy yourselves,
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website, mrvickies.co.uk, or drop them an email, info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on Voucher for £20. Don't forget, Supermac and Gibbo do every pre-match at Louis Liquor Store. It's free entry, children welcome, and there is great food by Fed's Fried Chicken. They're usually on pre